Ladies and gentlemen, we have a special treat today. This is our 11th podcast, and we're going to interview, not me this time, but Vonna Keller, who is an Antarctic veteran going not far back as I do, but quite a fair way back. So let's introduce Vonna.
Vonna Keller,
Yeah,
welcome to our podcast.
thank you.
We've done a few. This is our 11th, and you're a special guest, so thank you very much for being part of this little show. Basically, we're just talking about your Antarctic adventures. Phil's had plenty, but his was in a different generation. He was in the 70s, and you're in the 2008, is that right?
Started in 2005
Oh, 2005, okay.
and then finished up around 2014.
Okay. Oh, so it's been quite a long period. So Phil's really just a baby. He was only there for a year. You've been there continuous. Is it continuously or in sessions?
Well, I worked at the Home Office from 2003.
That's in
onwards.
Tasmania?
Yes, in
Yep.
Hobart.
Yep.
And then I started going down south around 2005.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So how did you get down there in 2005?
So my first stint down into Antarctica, I was a camp manager for the first building of an international runway in the Southern Hemisphere.
Oh, okay. All right. So that's what you get the jets in then.
Yeah, so we did get the Airbuses coming in.
Okay. And that was for the bases, or was that for a tourism type thing?
No, it wasn't tourism. It was for Casey Station to bring down personnel and cargo.
Okay. So you didn't go down on the ship?
Yes, I spent many seasons going down on the ship, and I flew down, I think, once or twice.
Okay. So that's the Aurora Australis, is that right?
Yeah, the Aurora. We leave right out of the port in Hobart
Yeah.
onto the Aurora and straight down to Antarctica.
Okay. So which base would you go to first?
So my first few seasons were at Casey Station.
Okay. So now Casey Station is closer to Australia as opposed to Mawson, which is closer to Africa.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, so Casey's closer.
Yeah, Phil can do a map on that one later on. Because that's the interesting thing about the stations. They're quite a distance apart, aren't they?
Yeah.
Yeah. So Casey Station, now, is that the principal station in Antarctica, or was Mawson?
Well, I think Mawson was pretty popular in the beginning, but Casey now, because of it's easy to fly in and fly out, is the hub, so they call it. Yeah, so that's where a lot of scientists fly in and out and get either transferred by light aircraft or helicopters from there
To the other bases.
Yeah, sometimes to the other bases, but not common. They usually go by ship.
Okay.
Summertime.
Oh yeah, because all the activities in the summertime, isn't it? So you've got Casey Station, then Mawson, and then Davis Station.
So you got Casey, Davis, Mawson, and then you got Macquarie Island, which is not a polar station. It's a sub-Antarctic station.
But that's more of a wilderness sort of thing, isn't it, for the bird studies and things like that?
And all the seals and penguins
Yeah.
and lots of things, krill, everything, really. So really, it's quite. If you had to relate it to something, you could relate it to ecology, archaeology, to the bird life, to the ocean life, to the seals.
Yeah.
Everything there is amazing.
But there's actual vegetation there, isn't there? That's the difference, I suppose.
Yeah, you can smell Macquarie Island after you've been on the ice all summer, and then you're on the ship, and then you smell the island well and truly before you see it.
That's one of the things I asked Phil when he first went there, is what does it smell like? Antarctica, and it smells like nothing.
No.
It's just no smell at all. And that's something that's unusual for us to come from a place which has got so many different smells to have literally nothing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is pretty interesting.
So you're the case. What was your function down there?
So I had many different hats. The first season I went down I was pretty green, and I managed a camp because my background was like search and rescue and snow conditions, like doing mountaineering and that kind of thing. So I managed the camp, and my job there was to fill the snow machine to melt water for our everyday use, to check the diesel that was running our whole camp, our electricity, to our flushing the toilet.
Yeah, flush the toilet.
It wasn't flushing.
Basic thing, isn't it?
It wasn't flushing. It was a burn toilet. So you pushed a button and it's incinerated all your leftovers.
One of Phil's experiences was basically one of the duties of one of the people to do is to burn the toilets. So you basically every day you just put kerosene in and blow them up.
Oh no, this was totally different. This would just ignite what was it. The interesting part about that was we I would go around with the little, the little, I can't think what the name of it was called, but we'd pick up the snow in the bucket and dump it into the ice melt machine for our water. We found out that the actual fallout from burning the toilet, the ash,
Oh yeah, it was starting.
we were drinking it.
Well, that's called complete recycling, isn't it? You sort of have a bit of extra taint of extra things.
Oh.
So it's interesting. You've had experience with every station.
Yeah, so I've been on every station. In the following years, I did field guide and field training. And then I did a lot of that at the home office as well, the field training.
So that's the sort of basic training you need to do before you go down.
Correct.
Yeah.
So that's survival training, basically. And then the last 2 years, I did the boating, and I did driving the big barges and taking cargo ship to shore, and also refueling stations.
So is that using the Larks? The LA, was it Lark?
No,
Lark?
not the Larks. I didn't use the Larks.
Just a landing craft.
It was the barges and the IRBs. Yeah.
So you're really So you're really into the sort of physical side of things, survival of the people who are there, because that's one of the things you have to have a fairly intensive preparation to go down there, isn't it?
Yeah, I think there's a misconception about Antarctica because it is one of the wildest places on Earth, but most people that go to Antarctica don't get out of the station. And it's only, the field trainers or scientists that mostly get out of the station. And then if you're down there for long term, you do get to go what they call jollies. So you get to go out to the old camps and have a bit of explore around and maybe ski and do some things like that in photography. When I started down in Antarctica, there's no dogs. The dogs have well and truly been gone.
Yeah.
But yes, we could go out on the skidoos or the four-wheelers or our skis or just walking with our packs. And it's quite regimented. You have to take survival gear, you have to do regular skids with the station, and you really have to get the weather forecast. And so you're carrying everything on your back, and you might have to go ground right out in the middle of nowhere if a blizzard comes in where you can't see anything. So you get in your big bag and
just zip up and
just
wait
wait it out.
Because the storms there are quite extreme, aren't they?
Yeah, it is one of the windiest places on Earth, so it's crazy down there sometimes. Like I've been flattened a few times, trying to hang on to the lines and just being blown flat, but not letting go of the line.
So that's a zip. What's the Blizz line? Isn't it the Blizz line?
Yes, a Blizz
Yeah.
line.
So you do clip on or do you hold on?
No, you should be actually hooked on and going along, and then you can unhook when you get to the other donga or shipping container.
Communications. So obviously back in 2008, communications are much better. So can you just pick up a phone now? You've got mobile phone coverage.
No. That's only really recent if that's happening. That hasn't been happening to my knowledge that you have mobile phone coverage.
Well, I just sort of, it's 2008.
No. We broke down before, and we still have to run a line out to get radio comms that'll
enough of an aerial.
To actually get help, and it can be quite worrisome when you're out there.
I suppose that's the thing when you realise when you get into trouble in a situation like that, everything sort of slows down. You go, oh, now we're really in trouble, because one thing can lead to another. And like you said, communications are down. People don't realise until the next sked that you've run into a problem.
Yeah, and one thing being in charge, like when you're a field guide or field leader or whatever you're doing out there, field training officer, you got to really make sure you're looking after everyone else.
Yeah.
Because if somebody's going to go down, then it's a lot more problems. So you got to make sure everyone stays warm and hydrated, and make sure that you're knowledgeable about how all the different ways that you can communicate. Sometimes you hear radio people talking from Russia or somewhere when you put out these cables, and you just keep trying to get through to the station. There's a lot more emphasis on safety now, and as everyone does to the best of their ability for what they have in Antarctica. So they make sure like the DSOs go through the vehicles before they go out, and they all have to be deemed
acceptable.
To go out, and the odd thing's going to happen, but that's just nature, isn't it? And it's so cold, things just break. The ice freezes. It's sort of one of those things you can't really pick it.
So, can you give us an adventure that you had while you were out there?
I had lots of adventures.
I know, that's what I'm saying. Let's just try to pick a couple, because that's basically what while we had so many podcasts, we go through an adventure at a time.
Well, I'd say the one thing that I used to live to do, because I was the only female when the first year I went down, summer, and we were building the ice runway, and so for entertainment, I had a kite, and I'd get my kite up, and I would get into these black nally bins, that you put stuff in and put the lids on.
Yeah.
And I was little, and I could get in one, and I'd get my kite going, and I would just get whipped down the runway like super fast, like so fast it would melt the bottom of the nally bin, and it would burn my bones.
Well, that's a way to warm yourself up a bit, I suppose.
Yeah. And then and every time you would do it, you want to get a little more adventurous. So then I would be trying to stand up in the nally bin, flying down with this kite, and the only way you could slow yourself down was to let go of one of the handles, so the kite would flip. Yeah. And it was
because you've got extreme winds down there. Got 100-knot winds.
Oh, and the wind through there just is constant.
And you're on a runway, so you literally had a few winds you'd have taken off. Yeah.
It was pretty good.
Were they building the wind farm? Did they have a wind farms there? Because
Mawson's got 2
wind turbines.
Wind turbines.
But if you've got a wind turbine, how does they turn it off when the wind's at 150 knots or something like that? Because those things would just snap.
Not sure about that.
Wheelie bins down the runway. That sounds like exciting fun. I've seen people doing wheelie bins just up the road here.
Not wheelie bins, nally bin, like the little black square.
So any close encounters with the animals?
No, I mean, you get a surprise a lot of, like a Macquarie, if you're just walking around a big tuft of grass or rock. Sometimes I've thought that the big elephant seal was a rock, and just walked kind of, and almost like was ready to lean on it and look around, and he just raises up and goes, he's just like, oh, shit. Yeah, one of my funniest moments was I was on the Amderma working on the Russian ship, and we were doing boating stuff, and I was always trying to prove myself as a female, because I'm totally male
that's what
world. So I'm running barges, 30-foot barges back and forth from the ship, the moving ship, because they can't anchor. So I'm running, and I push onto the ship, and I keep my power on so that I can be on the ship as it's moving. And they take a crane, and then they put some cargo on it, maybe a big tractor, maybe a shipping container, whatever have you. And then I have to scurry around icebergs and things, or pull off the ship when an iceberg's coming. Couldn't make a mistake because I was female and everything. And so this one night, the captain wanted to go in for a big dinner on station at Davis. And I was like, really excited. I was the one going to get to drive the captain in, and I was pretty excited. And he gets on, and all these other people file onto the barge to get taken in, and I'm dodging icebergs. I'm thinking I'm real clever, and I can't see the front of the barge because there's all these people standing there. So I'm getting close to the dock, and I'm like slowing down a bit, but all of a sudden, bam! Hit the dock, and the captain falls down onto the barge, and everyone's like just turns around and gives me the death
evil eye. The woman, woman.
So I was really embarrassed, and I'm apologetic, and the captain gets up and smiles, and he goes, "We've arrived!" and so got back that night. Everybody gets back on the barge, and I take them.
You're not allowed to have a drink either, because you're driving.
I can't drink. So then I'm driving everyone back out to the ship, and it's quite a ways offshore, and it was anchored at that point. And then I'm pushing like sea ice that had blown in, and I'm just like, and so I'd have to back up and go, and I was like sweating because I had this experienced captain on the barge, and so I ended up having to go around the other side of the ship and get them in, and then come back around by myself to get lifted out of the water by the cranes. Yeah. So I'm in those days you could stay on the barge while the crane lifted up. So I get off onto the top of the Amderma, and all the ship's crew, the Russians, are up there, and they had a big bottle of vodka, and they're going, "Vodka for Wana!"
Vodka for Wana!
So they all gave me a shot of vodka for my treat, and knocking the captain on his bum.
Now that's crazy, but it shows you the difficulties of navigating in that sort of environment, isn't it? And also the fact that you have to prove yourself all the time. You can't just be, as you said, you're the one woman.
I think as a woman, and I'm not trying to knock men, but there is those men that are, that atypical macho male
Yeah.
that want to see you fail or pick out all of the things that do go wrong. But they could go wrong with the men and nobody would even
You know,
fuss.
they probably knock the captain over every time. He
I
goes,
don't know about
vodka for William.
I think that might have been a one-off.
Did you, being a woman there, sort of hope to tone them down a bit and become a bit more normal, you know, as in a normal environment where male and females all get on?
The honest answer?
No.
No. No. That did not change a thing. You either fit in Antarctica or you don't. And
'Cause-
I think you've got to relax and you let people be people and accept them for who they are. And I think those are the best people that are going to end up in Antarctica getting along. You don't have to follow their example and act like them, but you can just turn a blind eye if you like, or just accept that they're not, you know, what you would accept in normal society, like Hobart or whatever. Antarctica it's a place upon itself, and they've tried to control it with stopping the drink down there, so that making
Except for vodka.
making the ships dry.
Yeah.
Most of the ships are dry. The Aurora Australis was the last P&O ship to become dry in the fleet.
How did you get paid? Because while you'd be down there for a year,
Well, my longest stint was 6 months.
6 months. So that's sort of the resupply time, or over the summertime.
Yeah.
Which is the most busiest time of the lot.
Yeah, and the winters are just to keep the stations ticking or keep them heated, keep things moving. So you didn't even think about money while you're down there. For example, you're fed every day. There's 3 meals a day. There's always food sitting in the larder or in the case, and you can eat anytime you want, really. But there's main meal times. If you're busy in the field, you come in and eat when you can. So you eat or you take stuff with you. So the main thing about payment is that just goes into your bank account, and that just builds up while you're down there. You don't use money.
Yeah.
Everything's free, all
Yeah.
food.
Yeah.
So there's chocolate bars, there's coffees to be made, there's tea, there's everything. You don't pay for anything down
And nobody
there.
smokes down there, I suppose, these days.
I would say they do. I'd say the people smoke down there. No, I never was a smoker, but I did see people smoking.
Yeah.
They'd be outside.
We were told that you had a very interesting episode of building a prime piece of real estate in Antarctica called the Wilkins Aerodrome.
So it was the first ice runway built in the Southern Hemisphere. So it was on outside of Casey Station in a place called Wilkins. And it was built by a handful of men, and I was the only woman on the camp. And so I had several jobs because I obviously wasn't out in the machines every day racing up and down the runway. Canberra wanted video and photos of the whole thing happening from start to finish. So I was in charge of like videoing and photography. And so I had a camera that I always just had sitting there ready to go, and I would always be doing stuff. So I was lucky enough that my footage got shown in Canberra with all the
Prime
pollies.
Ministers. Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The
they
pollies.
got
Wow, this is
shown.
really happening.
And they actually put some of my photos on the wall
Ah.
in Parliament. So I was pretty excited about that. But the funny part was you could be shooting a beautiful sunny day like today down there, and it made it look like a piece of cake living out there. But then I would put saran wrap around my camera and go out in these blizzes and hang on to the lines and just falling down in big snow drifts and shooting all that and mix that with the sunny days.
Yeah.
And then that made Canberra realize.
So
just
this
that
is not a summer holiday.
No, and it was really tough because you could get knocked down for days and days and just be out there with no sun and nothing to do, just twiddling your
Just-
thumbs and playing cards, you
Yeah.
know, because you're in little boxes.
The dongers.
Yeah, the dongas.
So how do you keep the camera functioning in those sort of conditions?
Short periods, you can't stay out for a long
Stick them
time.
under your wraps?
Well, I just keep it under my jacket, but
Yeah.
if, like you said earlier, if you have your zip open for even a few minutes, the blizz goes in and just packs like snow. So your camera, you got to get it in and then zip it up as best you
yeah,
can.
yeah, body walls.
Yes, got to be quick. And you get cold quite quick, your hands and everything. So you can only do short stints. You go out and shoot for 5 or 10 minutes. And then like it's all, even I put Glad wrap over the front of the cameras to keep the lenses from freezing up. And they would just snow would pack on them just really quick.
Were you actually working on this airstrip yourself?
I would go out there with them and go up and down in the vehicles with them, and I would remove snow to keep a track in and keep the snow all the way from all of our dongas or our shipping containers that we lived in.
Oh, they were actually at the airstrip.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. So we were right at the airstrip. We were only not far from it.
How far from Casey to the ice?
60K, I think.
60 k's.
Yeah.
Is that because that was the area that was suitable?
Well, it was a place that they thought would be suitable. They have lots of problems with it now. They got very short windows that they can actually fly in and fly out of the station, and it's built now really nice. When we were there in 2005, we were just living in little containers. Like there was probably 5 containers out there for accommodation, and then we shared a kitchen and living room one, and a toilet block one.
So basically, you're building on ice.
It's a moving sheet of ice coming down out of the hills.
It's a glacier.
Yeah, it's a glacier.
Oh right, okay.
So when it comes over the rocks, and as it comes over, it bends open and it makes those crevasses, and then it comes back, and they close back up, sort of, flattening back to the flat part, and they're moving a lot. They're moving a few centimeters every day. So.
It's noisy, I suppose. Noisy as well. Isn't it? It's noisy.
Yeah, and you can fill them up with snow and not know they're there. Like one time, the guy was inspecting it in the ute, and the back tires of the ute just fell into the crevasse, and it took us a while to get it out. So, they got to work that so that the big, Airbus coming in, that the wheels don't go into those, because that could be
catastrophic.
disastrous.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a living, breathing airstrip that you've got to check. Because it's like it's moving.
Yeah, I think, they thought it was a good idea. I think they probably have their doubts now, but it's done. And
You just got to maintain it.
yeah, I don't know what the future will bring.
Because I know that up in Phil's at Mawson they had a small strip, but they had a pilot as porters basically fly off it.
Yeah,
For time.
they were just probably using the little fixed wings.
Yeah,
they're not bringing an
Not the
Airbus.
big stuff. Yeah.
No.
You're down there for 6 months. What do you do for recreation? I mean, you're doing all the cool stuff. You're going kite surfing on the black thing, and you're driving your barge around the icebergs. But what do you do for your own time?
Oh, I did a lot of skiing, but you always got to have like an e-bird with you, and you got to have a radio, and you got to do skids. And I don't think they let people ski independently now. I think you have to always have someone else with you. This was when I was out at the runway. I just do big laps around, and really watch my weather and stuff like that, and just do skids. And so I get a lot of skiing in, a lot of walking, and just working around the place, keeping the snow out of the doorways and all that kind of stuff. But
that is a real issue, because apparently you leave the door open for a little bit, it's piled up.
We had, we just pulled pranks on each other all the time. Stuff was fun. You had to make it fun. A couple of us would go out and cut big ice blocks and put them all in front of the other guy's door. So it was just like all snow, just like there, and he was like, "Yeah, you bastards!"
Yeah, I get you. Because that's the sort of thing. That's the sort of extreme things that people did, because you just did things as pranks and things like that. And in Phil's time, they just built things like a jet boat out of a water pump and things like that. Just that they got that imagination.
Yeah, like Friday nights we'd have like happy hour out on the runway area, and tradies built a little bar that popped up, and I'd bring all the drinks out and make some special cocktails. Food, and then the boys all carved like couches and chairs out of the snow, and we'd all sit out in our frozen couches and chairs and have our drinks, and it was have some nice music. It was a lovely thing, and then it was a real community feel. So we would just make that an every Friday night thing, because the boys worked really, really hard. They worked through the nights and stuff. So I had a lot of alone time, because the guys would be out working all night. They'd sleep all day, and we were opposite. And I would sometimes just get on the Skidoo and take out like the big bottles of hot chocolate. Just look for the lights and head for them. Get to the guys and pour everyone a hot chocolate, and it was just you just kind of.
It's real camaraderie, isn't it?
Yeah. And I remember, sometimes we could go back to station, and you just let your hair down, and you just, a little too much in those days. Sometimes you have a lot of drink and really let your hair down. And then I can remember getting pretty tipsy, going to bed, and then woke up in the morning, and I had these beautiful Birkenstocks. Like they were all lined with fur, and my Birkenstocks weren't there, but a big pair were under my bed, and I was just like, "What the hell is going on here?"
Well,
and, and I looked around, and there was nobody in my room, and I go out with these big Birkenstocks. I'm like, "All right, whoever's got this." Whoever's these are have a small pair of Birkenstock, and I don't know how you got your feet in
He's got
them.
them on his ears or something.
Yeah. So they're always pulling pranks like that. They just snuck in my room and put the big shoes there and took my little ones. But you know, we had some really fun stuff. You know, you do build really good friendships there for life.
Because it is a unique environment. It's a unique situation, and it's not something that anybody in, you know, wherever you're living can relate to, because it's so extreme from where we are. You would have gone down there sort of just after our winter, going down to their summer,
Yes.
and then you come back to a sort of blazing hot summer up here. So it sort of takes a while to acclimatise again, I suppose.
Well, actually, it kind of feels like the opposite, because you're here and you're in Australian winter, and then you're going down there for Australian summers, but it's still like icy and cold and blizzards, and so you feel like you're going winter to winter.
Winter, yeah.
Winter. So I didn't feel like I saw summer for like many years, you know. Yeah, I was lucky I had a lot of really fun gigs, because I took film crews and artists in the field and spent a lot of time going to all the stations and staying in all the huts.
Because I've never seen people going all the stations. You know, that's
Yeah,
great.
so I was lucky because I was a field guide and a field trainer, so I get to do a lot of really fun stuff and take scientists in the field. But I mean, in saying that, there were some stressful things too, because you would all of a sudden get a blizz, and then your screen is just like white noise, and you feel like it almost makes you feel sick. I don't know if some of the other guys can relate to that. I'm sure they can. And then you're just driving off of, like, you know, your radar and your GPS, and you're thinking, wow, I hope this is all true to.
And the fact there's no crevasse just developing.
Well,
in
that's
front of
why you want to follow. They have big barrels down there. The radar kind of bounces off of, and that lets you know where your track is. But it's still. You always have that little bit of doubt in the back of your mind. Oh, am I going the right way? Because you're driving.
Because you've got no visual cues at all. It was all gone.
Yep.
You're just looking at the instruments. You're like you're flying, blind.
I like being in a submarine or flying in the dark or something.
You've got to trust that machinery.
Yeah.
So your accent is interesting.
Yeah.
Is it North American?
Yes. I lived in Lake Tahoe for many
That's
years.
California.
California.
Yeah.
And I don't know how I ended up in Tasmania, but
Well, that's but you love skiing and you love the outdoor life.
Yeah, I was a guide, and then I did international guiding, and I did ski patrolling, and you know, lots of taught expedition medicine for years with my partner, and so kept me busy.
So you like to be out and about. That's what I think I noticed that with talking to Phil, is you have to be pretty darn fit to be out there. I mean, these guys were chasing the dogs. You know, they were running beside the dogs, A, to keep warm, and B, to keep the sleds lighter.
Yes.
But you guys will be doing the same sort of thing. You know, you're trudging around, you're working long hours.
Skiing a lot. Yeah, and just and exhausted mentally and physically. Yeah. And I mean, I'm sure most Antarctic people can relate to that. It's it's when it's on, it's on.
Yeah.
You know, so when you got the daylight, you got the good weather, you're working, and then when it all closes
weather
in,
says closing,
and then you settle in.
But what I was going to ask, did you have any short story that you wanted to still relate?
Any short stories that I wanted to tell?
Something really crazy that may have happened.
Like, it's probably common though. People like
but nothing's common down there.
Surfing on an iceberg and that.
Well, hey, I'd like to hear that.
Surfing on an iceberg?
That's it. That's a good one.
Give us that
How do you
story.
surf on an
Hang
iceberg?
When you're at Casey Station and icebergs got blown into the harbour, so there was a handful of us that really wanted to get out there. There weren't giant ones, but they were big enough to get up on, and you're not really supposed to climb on normal icebergs because underneath they're big and they can flip over and cause you damage. But these ones were small, so I kept my beanie on and was in my swimsuit, and a few of us swam out there.
Swam out?
Yeah.
How cold is that?
That was like the coldest I've ever felt in my entire life. Yeah. It took your breath away. It was like, and as you're swimming, you're like, you know, you just can't.
How much time have I got left in the water? Yeah.
Yeah, and we had a guy in a boat out there in case he needed to pull anyone out of the water. So we get to the iceberg, and you know it's like all fingernails climbing up and like trying to get your foot in a pocket, and you get up on the iceberg and it's trying to roll as you're trying
Yeah,
to get
because
on
they're quite mobile, isn't it?
Yeah, so you get someone behind you, just shoves you up on it. So we got up on the iceberg, and I'm standing in just a little red swimsuit and my red beanie, and I'm like, I stand on it, and like as the waves coming down, I'm surfing on this iceberg, and it was quite wonderful.
Did you actually get a bit of a go? You know.
No, not really. Just rock and roll.
Yeah.
Just like you had to actually really balance.
Must be a great photo. So like, you know, Antarctica, 2008.
Yeah.
On the icebergs.
Yeah, and so swimming back in, I must say, was hard because you start to lose all the blood in your limbs.
Yeah.
Because your core wants to stay warm, so it shuts down your extremities. And so I'm trying to swim, and I'm like,
Yeah, you think you
I
can't-
can do this. I get back in. I'll get back in. And
Yeah.
yeah, it was pretty cold. Yeah.
But yeah, it must have been an interesting shower afterwards just to try and defrost.
Yeah, and they had a little hut in there with heaters all on, and you run into the hut, and you have hot chocolates, and you're just like, whoa, you can't talk, your jaw's locking, and it's shivering, like, it's
So
pretty
hopefully somebody got some good photos then.
Yeah, I've got lots of beautiful Antarctic
That's great.
photos. Yeah.
Because that's the thing, the technology got better and better, obviously, as the time goes by. So the photographs are obviously getting more and more wonderful to watch.
And one time when I was out there in the freezing cold, and we were trying to eat these frozen chalky lollies with caramel in them, and I was like, I bite into it, and I was trying to chew it with my jaw, and it pulled my gold crown right off my teeth in the middle of the Southern Ocean on the Aurora Australis, and went to the dock, and the dock said, we have to stop the whole ship so we can fix it, and they stopped the ship in the middle of the Antarctic
Southern Ocean, yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh my God, like I'm the only person that's had to have
Had
the
the ship
stopped.
stopped with. Why'd they have to stop the ship?
Because they have to like clean all the stuff out. No food product can be under there, and it's all
Yeah, 'cause
very
that-
delicate work. Because I was a field training person, I'd have to be sent back home. Wouldn't have been going down south. One last story,
Yep.
and this one's the best story, I think. And we were having a big barbecue on the back deck of the Aurora Australis. So Captain Muzz, that's all I'll call him. Captain Muzz was our skipper on the Aurora Australis, and we were all just getting to have, because you only get allotted to have a couple of beers on a special occasion, and the barbecue was a special occasion. So we all had just opened our beers, had the barbecues cranked up. All of a sudden, the ship just does this amazing left-hand turn. And we're all just stumbling across, trying to hang on to our beers, grabbing the railing, and we're all just looked at each other. So we all run to the way he turned, and we're all looking, and there's this big ship out there with cranes on it and stuff. And we hear Captain Muzz going, "This is the Aurora Australis. Stop your ship! Stop your ship! We're going to board." And I'm just like, "Oh my God!"
Australian pirates.
So yeah, they were illegal whalers.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was so proud of Muzz. We're like, yeah.
So the whaling ship doing down there? That's the Japanese or something? Or the...
Well, it looked like a Spanish ship or something. I won't say for sure because I can't remember the exact details.
That's unusual. I mean, this day and age to be a whaling ship.
Well, this day and age, it was 2005. So.
Well, that's extraordinary. So you boarded the ship and confiscated the whales?
Well, no,
Or
he didn't end up boarding. They wouldn't let him board
Yeah, what do you
anyway. But he gave him a hard time, and they actually pulled up everything and headed off.
Good, well
I'm
done.
not saying that they left Antarctic waters, but he did call the Coast Guard, and it was quite well documented, and it was pretty interesting. But that was pretty exciting.
Yeah.
I'd never been in one of those deals before.
I was going to ask you at the beginning, how was your trips down on the ship? Because it can get damn scary.
Yeah, it was awesome because I was like one of 10 people out of a crew of 100 that would be up walking around and still filming and doing photography. I don't get sick.
I've seen Phil's footage of the same sort of thing where the boat's just basically like this and there's massive waves coming over the top.
It's quite good. It's quite good. You're sitting there and people would be talking and then they're just like, they just grab their coffee, pull it back, and just keep eating, and then it's like, and you learn to just
Yeah, you
look
just
at
to
if
ride
you're the
it.
ones up, there's only usually a handful up until you hit the ice where it stabilizes the ship. But out in the open sea, you're just like, whoa.
Because it's an icebreaker, it's very, very very bouncy.
Yeah, it's got water ballast, the Aurora, but it's still like a little. It's like a little tub. It's all over, and it makes this horrible scream, like we used to call it the Aurora Witch because the water coming through. It made this horrible squeal. It sounded like a witch screaming, and we made this little film called The Aurora Witch Project, which was really
Did
really
you have
funny.
the snot coming out of your nose?
Oh, but it was funny because we did the audio for all that noise, and it was perfect. It was really good.
So you look back at Antarctica with great fondness.
Oh, certainly.
Would you be going back again, or have you you've done that bit?
Well, I actually was going to go back down a sixth time, but I got diagnosed with bowel cancer, and so now I'm on that journey. I'm
Yep.
7 years on.
Yep.
But I'm living with the cancer, and I'm doing quite well.
Yeah. Okay.
But they won't allow you to go back to Antarctica.
Sorry to end on that sort of note.
No, it's part of my journey.
Well, thank you so much. Many other people who really have such great experiences being out there. And like I said, it's such a unique environment and a challenging one in all aspects. And I think it leaves a mark on people for the rest of their lives, so they can always relate back to it.
I'd have to agree with that. I think that anybody that goes to Antarctica that's not changed, there'd be something wrong with them, because it does change you.
Thank you so much for
Thank
that.
you very much for your time.
Thank you. And we should cut from there.
Cut.
Well, that was fantastic.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that was a great interview. Peter Niblett interviewing Vonna Keller. And we heard Antarctic adventures from a woman's point of view, just to give it that extra unique stamp. Thank you a lot, Vonna.